I'm Robert Lloyd Griffiths, and today on Walking the Talk, brought to you by Call of the Wild, I'm joined by someone who embodies the very best of Welsh leadership. Rhuanedd Richards is the BBC's Interim Director of Nations, leading teams across all 4 regions of the UK that deliver content, reaching millions of people every week. But beyond the scale of her role is her roots and her outlook that really shine through. Born and raised in the Cynon Valley, a proud Welsh speaker and a passionate advocate for Wales, Rhuannedd's leadership is shaped by the sense of community she grew up with. Spend just a few moments in her company and you'll feel the positive and optimism that drive her approach, and I can't wait to talk and walk with her today and explore her journey, her leadership and her hopes for the future of Wales. Rhuanedd, it's a real privilege to be with you today. Should we go for a walk?
It's an absolute pleasure and I'd love to go for a walk.
Let's go. Well, Rhuanedd, it's a great pleasure for me to have the opportunity to have a chat with you. I saw you recently chatting to Laura McAllister at a Cardiff Business School event. I know I've got a lot to live up to, but I was struck at that event by the passion and the hoil, as we say in Wales, of your life and your upbringing and where you're from, and how that helped and shape and mould what you've done throughout your career. A sense of community and belonging is really important for you, isn't it?
It's really important, and it's definitely shaped my outlook on life, my values, my work ethic, I think, as well, and my sense of wanting, I guess, to give something back. That has always been something I've felt quite keenly. I grew up in a family where people felt that you should give back to community, that we should be grateful to what the community has given us, and that, you know, in terms of social cohesion, that we're better when we come together, and that sense of public service, I guess. So, so that background certainly has shaped my view of the world, and it's also shaped my interest in journalism, of course, at an early age. I grew up during the miners' strike. At a time in the 80s where politics was pretty polarised then. We talk about that now, it was then as well. And it sort of led to an inevitable, perhaps, curiosity of the world and decision-making and holding people to account, and how we do that through being great journalists. And that has certainly driven an ambition, I think, throughout my career to want to tell the stories of Wales and its communities, and, like I say, to pursue truth.
And that sense of community when you were growing up, you know, they were tough times. What gave you the inspiration to elevate your ambitions beyond that community into doing something that really mattered into the future?
I think at that time what I saw was a lot of people innovating, showing ambition, showing innovation to come together for the good of the wider community. I was quite inspired by that, how, you know, those tough times in the valleys led to a sense of, I don't know, some sort of greater good, that through coming together, through thinking about how you can shape a new future and forge a new future, you can do some interesting stuff. So I guess that led to me thinking, well, what's my contribution to all of that? What difference do I want to make? You know, we're only on this planet for a short amount of time. Life's very short. So what do I want my legacy to be, perhaps? Which just sounds quite egotistical, doesn't it? But, you know, I think we can all be here to make a little difference and to make our collective lives a little bit better. So I guess I've always thought in those terms.
And in those early days, and those tough times and the difficult times in the environment in which you were brought up, did you look at people and think, I want to be like them? Or did you have those role models in terms of leadership or people that stood out?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, you know, just to be honest here, I grew up in a very privileged middle-class background in the middle of a very poor community. And, you know, my dad was a lawyer, my mum was a social worker, and, you know, we were very lucky with the upbringing we had, but it was very much a sense of belonging to a wider community and perhaps a wider set of societal values, if you like. So I guess the people who inspired me were the community leaders in all sorts of life, teachers.
Yeah.
Had some amazing teachers in Ysgol Rhydd where I went to school.
Yeah.
So lucky with the education I had. But also, in developing that interest in journalism, I used to be quite inspired by the likes of Noreen Brave, remember
Yes,
Noreen?
I remember, yeah.
On Wales Today, Betty George.
I know Betty George,
On a
yeah.
I'm thinking, look at these women, aren't they fantastic?
They were in those days.
And
Tom
thinking,
Bray,
yeah.
Noreen's son, is now senior partner at Eversheds.
Really? Well. So, yeah, those women certainly inspired me to think, OK, this is something perhaps I could pursue as a career. Although I've got to be honest, the BBC felt a million miles from me and from where I could aspire to work at the time. But, yeah, that's where it all started.
And so those from those early acorns, I say acorns because we're walking today in beautiful Bute Park in the centre of Cardiff.
Already, yes.
And the colours are fantastic. I think I just trod on an acorn, so that was a good DJ link, really, wasn't it? But in terms of those early days, so growing up with all of those inspirational people around you, school, Ysgol Rhydd, as you said, and from there, where did you go?
So, well, it's quite interesting, first of all, it's worth saying that despite having the Welshest name in the book of Welsh baby names, my family didn't speak Welsh.
Aha.
So I was the first member of my family to speak Welsh fluently because my parents chose to send me to a Welsh medium school. Mum and Dad then went on to learn the language, which was a pretty remarkable thing
Pretty
to
special,
do.
isn't it?
And the language certainly gave me opportunity.
Yeah.
In the opportunities offered by school and other things to discover a new culture.
Yeah.
An aspect of Wales that I didn't know before because I lived in quite a sort of English-speaking area.
Yeah.
And through that became interested in Welsh language music. Through that thought, do you know what, it'd be really fun to go to university in Aberystwyth,
Okay.
where I could study through the medium of Welsh and meet other Welsh speakers. And that's what I did. So I got a scholarship to Aberystwyth University and spent 3 very happy years there. I want to say studying, but I think I was having more fun than anything else.
Okay. Studying life.
Yeah, studying life, indeed. And then became student president.
Yeah.
And really enjoyed a sabbatical year doing that. And during that year, I started volunteering for the local radio station, Radio Ceredigion.
Okay.
Presented a programme which had the best title, The Frosted Pink Lipstick Show.
Loving
Isn't that
that.
fantastic?
I love that. I love that. That sounds perfect.
So did that and developed the bug, the interest in broadcasting, combined with my interest in journalism and in politics and current affairs and news. And was fortunate enough then to be sponsored by the BBC to come here to Cardiff to study a postgraduate diploma in broadcast journalism.
Wow.
And that's what I did before joining the BBC.
And if I can just wind back, your time as student president, I mean, would you say that's your first leadership role?
I guess it was. I didn't consider it in that way at the time.
It's interesting, isn't it, that it came to the fore after we've talked about the community involvement and looking at people who did good things and great things, having those role models, and all of a sudden you think, well, do you know what? I can do this. I'm going to go for it.
Yeah.
And what did it entail? I mean, it was your chance, I suppose, and remembering my university days, the president was omnipresent, really.
Yes. Well, I certainly had to capture the imagination of the students, first of all, in order to run the election campaign to become president. So it certainly involved a bit of creativity in terms of the marketing campaign behind that.
Yeah.
And then, as president, you're in charge of all the services, the bars, the entertainment and that side of things. You're in charge of the welfare services, as well as the sort of more campaigning type element of the work. And, oh gosh, it was great fun, and had a fantastic team of people, many of whom I'm still in contact with today.
Good, yeah.
And it was a time of great change because we were starting to see things like student loans being introduced, tuition fees being mooted. So students in those days campaigned and protested a lot. I think less so today for some reason. But
they're too busy studying. Maybe.
They are too busy, and perhaps because they're paying for it as well. I think there's a sense of value behind that now. Yeah. But who knows? But anyway, we had a great year, and I learnt a lot about myself, developed a bit of self-confidence, I guess, during that year, and decided, do you know what? I could do this.
Yeah. I mean, that sense of development of one's self-confidence. I mean, you know, I think you said before, you know, you're no one sees the 5'2" lady with a smiley face coming, but you know, there's a steely self-confidence behind that to have achieved everything that you've achieved.
I guess so, but I think it's evolved over time.
Yeah.
So, you know, when I joined the newsroom, first of all, you know, I had to earn my stripes, right?
Yeah.
I had to develop credibility as a journalist.
Yeah.
And I think credibility is made up of three things. It's made up of authority, in other words, that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's made up of relatability.
Yeah.
Similarity, you know, that people can relate to you as a human being. And I think also your reputation. And, you know, I think when you start out your career, if you can focus on those three elements, I think it puts you in a good position. So built my credibility as a journalist. And that wasn't easy, I don't think, particularly as a political correspondent.
Yeah.
And a young woman.
Yeah.
You know, I was, 25, 26 as a political correspondent in a very male environment. That was quite tough in the political world. But that certainly gave me a great deal of resilience. It whetted my appetite for wanting to know more, to do more. I threw myself into every single opportunity. Any programme that needed presented, any story that needed to be told, I'd be, yes, please. Yeah. And built my credibility in that way. And that was a really important sort of foundation then for what led to what I did later. So, yeah, I was quite proud of it.
But it strikes me that you're the sort of person who throws yourself into everything you do. And you know, that displays an inner confidence, really, doesn't it? Because you have to be confident to be able to pull it off.
I think I've got to believe in what I'm doing, though.
Yeah.
So I've always been somebody of conviction.
Yeah.
I've got to believe in my job. I've got to believe that it's contributing something, that it's worthwhile. And once I've bought into that concept of what it's going to deliver, how I can make change, what I can personally bring to the table, I'll 100% commit to it.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, life's too short. I think if you're going to do something, do it properly, put that effort into it and make a difference. And I guess that's my mantra. I mean, there've been some things I've done where I couldn't see the value.
Yeah.
And then I'm not so great, if I'm being honest. If I'm being completely honest with you. So I've learned that throughout my career, that when applying for roles, I only apply for roles that I really believe in and I really want to do.
But that demonstrates as well, you know, principles and principled leadership is hugely important for an organisation, in any organisation. And you know, principled leadership lead to that cascading of an ethos within an organisation where there's trust, where there's belief, and where there's the understanding and appreciation that, you know, we can do something together.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it's really important to me that my personal values are aligned with my professional values and the professional values of the organisation I'm working with.
Yeah.
I struggle when there isn't that alignment then. But I feel really fortunate to have worked in organisations where that has mostly been the case, which is a good thing. It's
aligning your principle with an organisation, and then knowing, I suppose, as a leader or as an individual who's working in an organisation, when to make a move. Yes. And you made a move from journalism into politics, and then onwards to working with the presiding officer as an advisory role. How did that feel after the busy and the heady world of journalism, working into the world of politics?
I mean, it was terrifying at the time, you know. It was a complete leap into the unknown. And don't forget, what I actually did was go work for Welsh Government as an advisor. And I think that's what drove me to take up that opportunity, that it was a new government, it was a new environment, that I've never been a particularly tribal person. I believe in delivery, and if I could contribute something within that space, that could be quite interesting. So helping look at and navigate budgets and legislation and policy, you know, at that time was quite an interesting opportunity. And it taught me a lot, I think, about leadership, about the importance of collaboration with people from all backgrounds and all perspectives. And I guess that's stuck with me today.
Yeah, and really gives the foundation for developing the next part of your career. But just looking at those end of the last century, it seems weird saying end of the last century, doesn't it? But that was a time, cool Cymru, it was hope, it was, ambition writ large for Wales, and you were part of it.
I think that's been a driver throughout my career, that, we all want to see Wales do well. I mean, I'm obsessed now with ensuring that we serve audiences well in Wales. And throughout the nations, of course, now in my new role. But in terms of Wales itself, I think I've always, regardless of the role, regardless of who I'm working with, I felt, come on, let's develop a bit of ambition. Let's develop a bit of self-confidence. Oh, that poor dog over there seems to be a little terrified.
I think it proves that we're actually walking through the park, really.
Hope I haven't upset him. So, so that I think that we've got to develop that self-confidence, that swagger.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
To know.
I'm walking differently now. Yeah. Yeah.
We're as good as any other nation. We're as capable as people in achieving the very best. And I just always wanted to see us do that, whether that is in content creation, in our journalism, in what we're achieving for our economy. I think, the lack of self-confidence we've exhibited at times, I found deeply frustrating.
But why is that? Why do we lack that swagger? Why do we lack that self-confidence? Because we are as good. Look, we demonstrated in terms of NATO summits, international sporting events, politics. We've got some amazing gifts that we've given the world. Why do we feel that sort of reticence, that hesitance about putting ourselves forward?
I don't know. Do you know what? I remember as a child, my grandparents would say to me if I'd done something well, oh, that's wonderful, but you shouldn't tell other people. There was an element of, if I'd had a gift for my birthday, that's lovely, but you don't need to share that with others. You don't need to tell other people because you don't want to be boastful. You don't want to be. There was an element of, I think, trying to, for the best reasons possible, that we were decent human beings, trying to be a little shy about our achievements, And I don't know whether that was born of perhaps our religious past.
I was going to say chapel,
and community, because nobody likes a boaster, right?
Exactly.
That was the mentality. But somehow that then was translated into how we approach our sort of ambitions for our community and our country. And I think we've just got to get past that and get over it. When I go to London and I speak with my colleagues in London, they will say to me about Wales, gosh, you're doing brilliantly. I mean, you're creating the best content. The guest that's just been on the TV, I mean, smashed it out to the park in terms of figures, doing amazingly. Death Valley, filmed here, is one of the top hits for BritBox in America. We are creating things that are world class here in our nation. I think we should celebrate that. We've got lots of clever people here.
But how do we do it better? How do we get that message across in a more, I don't know, understandable way that people can relate to, and then people can get on the bus?
For me, it starts in school.
Does it? Yeah.
Yeah, it starts in school. I remember I remember sharing that I'd like to be a journalist
Yeah.
in my careers fair. And I think it was an external provider that came in for the careers fair. It wasn't the school itself, because they were great. And I remember somebody saying to me, yes, that's lovely that you want to be a journalist. Now, what do you really want to do?
Really? Really?
There was a bit of an element of, come on, girl, keep your feet on the ground and...
Be a doctor, be a teacher, be an engineer,
Yes,
go in the
yes.
bank.
Yes.
But don't be a journalist.
Yeah, but don't go thinking above your station now. It was that sort of attitude, you know. And I think, particularly in the valleys, I spent a lot of time visiting schools, and we've got some amazing schools out there. And I speak to the kids, and I tell them I'm from Aberdare, grew up in Mountain Ash and Cwmaman. I went on and I did this. I didn't think I could do it, but I got there, and you can do that too. Just dream big dreams. Don't limit your ambitions. And I think that's the message we need to give our kids, that, you know, they can go on to achieve, they can make a difference, whilst also, I think, these days, living in their communities.
Yeah.
And that's the difference I've seen, I think, to the BBC now compared with the BBC back then, is that there are far more network roles now based in Wales. There are far more other parts of the BBC based in Wales, so you can pursue a career with Radio Cymru or Radio Wales or Wales Today, but you can also pursue a career with Any Questions or in making global drama, you know, so you can still belong to this community, you can still live in this amazing nation of ours, an amazing country of ours, whilst also, you know, really achieving big things.
Don't limit your aspirations or ambitions, because you can do it. I always think it would be great if there was a ministry for good news as part of Welsh government. A minister for good news, how about that?
Excellent. And a special bulletin for good news.
And a special, perhaps on the BBC.
Yes, okay, we'll sort it.
But in terms of going back after your time outside in the political arena and the government arena, you know, back to the BBC in a very senior role, how did that come about? And I guess you probably, from your former experience, had BBC within you.
Yeah.
And you can see how things can be done differently, or dare I say it, better? Or
when I left the BBC, I loved the BBC.
Yeah.
That's probably a top tip. Always leave a role when you're really happy and when you're really enjoying it. Yeah. And I think what I learnt when I was outside the BBC was about leadership and how you inspire others, how you bring people with you on a journey, how you can create coalitions of opinion around various subjects, you know, regardless of people's backgrounds, beliefs and aspirations. But, you know, when I came back to the BBC, somebody mentioned to me that they were looking for somebody to lead their Welsh language services, and I thought, well, what a lovely opportunity. And I thought I had something to offer. You know, I also believe still very, very much in the BBC's mission to educate, entertain, to inform. And I think that I thought that, you know, politics had become very polarised, and to be able to support our effort in telling the stories of Wales, in pursuing truth, and to be impeccably impartial as well within that environment, so that we can bring civility to debate, so we can create that social cohesion and debate things that are really, really difficult. I just thought it would be fun to get involved in all that again, and also to be creative.
Yeah, and you're a creative person. That's part of who you are as well, and you're creative in terms of you know, the way in which you approach issues and matters, and that's important to you, is it?
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, I think the creativity helps the innovation, right? Yeah. You know, at the moment, the behaviours of audiences are changing almost weekly. It's hard to catch up with an ever-changing media landscape. So we have to be creative. We have to think of new ways, new formats, new products, new platforms to bring people to our content. and particularly within the context of content from our nation and from Wales and from local areas. So, so bringing the creative thinking to that, I think, is quite critical.
And in terms of your current role, you're interim head of regions and nations, or nations and regions. Yeah. We'll put the nations first. You know, how would you describe what you do? I mean, are you the conductor with an orchestra that sometimes, plays the wind instruments and the brass comes up or anything? Are you the conductor? Or
it feels a bit like that sometimes. Yeah. Yes, it can feel a little bit like that. But listen, we've got a strategy.
Yeah.
Right? The BBC has a strategy, and the BBC strategy is based on making sure that regardless of where you live in the UK, regardless of your background, you feel value for your licence fee.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
So within the context of nations and regions, I think a big part of that is that you can access and see and read and listen to content that's about your area, that's relevant to your community and your life. And that's the role, I guess, I see my division plays. So I try and coordinate how we do that, how we can continue to innovate in this changing environment to be able to reach those audiences and the audiences we've underserved, find new audiences, so that we can do that really important job of giving these audiences information that they need to participate in society, that we can entertain them, like I say, with relevant content and give them some fun along the way. Because it's meant to be fun as well.
It's got to be fun. It's got to be fun. And, and BBC, world-renowned, it's a big responsibility. And you're at the head of an organisation with a massive responsibility that influences society and can do all those good things.
Yeah. It's a really important organisation. It's so close to my heart, and the Director General talks often about when he's speaking with other Director Generals from across the world, across Europe, and how envious they are of this organisation that we've got that, has its audience there guiding what we make, what we produce, and that we're able to have the breadth and depth to serve those audiences well. I mean, it's such an important role. And as I say, I think in this current climate where there's lots of disinformation and such polarisation, I think our role in pursuing truth, our role in bringing alive homegrown storytelling, and our role in bringing people together as well in Wales is more important than ever before.
And being a woman throughout your career has given you distinct issues to cope with and advantages. And I always feel difficult to ask this question as a man asking the question, but I know that you've spoken and you're on record talking about the importance of equality and diversity and creating opportunity for all. In your experience, a young woman who's listening to this podcast, will have to potentially go through pitfalls, or is it less now than it was with you?
You think you turn a corner and then society goes and surprises you again, I think, yes, we're far more representative, for example, as a workforce in BBC Wales than we ever used to be. And I mean that in terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of class, That is a fact. However, it can be tough at times. And I feel a strong sense of responsibility to mentor, to support those, particularly who come from similar backgrounds to me, who are women who have pursued a career they never thought they could obtain, and to ensure that they all feel that they can achieve their very best within the BBC. And, things do come your way that you find difficult. I remember when I went off to have my kids, and I came back to work and you lose a lot of confidence.
You're right, okay.
And you start thinking, okay, well, how do I juggle this new life I've got as a mum, as well as do my job as a senior journalist at the time? And I felt, oh gosh, I spent so much time feeling guilty for not being on the schoolyard after school, right? That applies to all parents, whether you're mum or dad. But what I've learned is, over the years, that we've got to stop this sense of guilt, right? My kids, I'm so proud of them. 20 and 22 years of age now, they're achieving great things. My son's about to become a doctor. My daughter's studying in Venice.
Oh, wow.
How lucky is she? And they've gone on to be lovely, polite, decent members of the human race. Yeah. And probably despite me rather than because of me.
I'm sure not. I'm sure not.
And I'm really proud of that. So I just think we've got to shed that sense of guilt.
I've got this feeling as well. I mean, you mentioned loveliness and politeness and decency. And kindness, for me, is hugely important in dealing with people. These are qualities that leaders need to have in spades. Yeah. And I think sometimes those sort of traits are put behind as almost secondary to the tenacity, optimism, professionalism. Yeah. All of those things make the full package, don't they?
Oh, 100%. I think, and I'd add authenticity to all of that. I think people can smell a lack of sincerity a mile off. I think you've got to be who you are. Yeah. And I've had to learn that, by the way. Okay. I think there were, when I began my career, I thought there was very much an expectation that you spoke a certain way, and I was slightly paranoid that my accent was perhaps too valleys at times, and that I was a bit short and a bit dumpy to be on camera. And that was just me. And I learned to understand that actually what made me stand out was my background, was because I was perhaps different to others, and to embrace that and embrace the fact that others could relate to me because of who I was. So, but yeah, kindness, so important in any workplace. I always say to my teams, nobody wants to be led by, or nobody was ever inspired by misery.
True.
Nobody wants to be led by somebody who's unkind, or work with someone who's unkind. I use a rather stronger word, but it's just a bit basic. And I think if we show that kindness, and if we create an environment that's supportive and inclusive, then we get the very best out of our staff.
And I think kindness and authenticity must be the foundation, but also it's not being afraid to take the difficult decisions as well. Yeah. And you will have taken difficult decisions in your time, but you do it with decency, authenticity, kindness, and always doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a very simple rule that I've got to be able to sleep at night with my decisions. And sometimes it takes a few sleepless nights before I can sleep at night, worrying about that decision. And that's fine. I think I've got to feel that my conscience is clear, that I believe in what I'm doing, that it's the right thing to do. Once I've made that, once I've come to that point, that's fine. I can make that tough decision. And I've had to make some really tough decisions in my career about people, about programs, about content. But you should always do it with kindness and honesty. And I think it's always about the purpose, the why. If you start with the why, then you can usually either get people to respect your point of view, even if you can't win them over, right?
No, that's a stellar piece of advice, I think, in terms of our leadership, is what we're talking about today. And I just wanted to pick up on one thing that you mentioned in terms of, your self-perception, and you've gone forward, obviously hugely successfully, but the Welsh accent, did it hold you back? Being Welsh, it goes back to our previous part of the conversation when we're talking about, is it because we're Welsh, are we good enough? And it's that optimism that we need to sort of shine through. But I'm guessing that when you're in the boardrooms and the corridors of power with both BBC in Cardiff and also in London and other parts of the UK, you're distinctive, aren't you?
I'm really distinctive. I really am. And I embrace that now. In fact, sometimes, I can go so valleys on people. I think I've had 2 meetings, board meetings in London recently, where either the term minging has come out, or cooking my Swede.
Right.
Which are all particular things that I would be saying in Aberdeen.
Yeah.
But it's authentic, isn't it? It's about who I am. And as you say, it's what makes me different quite often. And I hope it's what others perceive in me as being an additional value or asset to the team I work in throughout the BBC, that I come with that different background and perspective. So, yeah, I just, what I'd say to anyone is just embrace that. Be proud of where you come from. Be proud of who you are. And be very aware and conscious as well that other people come from different backgrounds, and embrace that. Absolutely. I love meeting new people, but the best part of this new job is I get to go out and about, travelling, meeting new people from different communities. I was up in Liverpool recently chatting with them about their hopes for the city. I've been in Bradford and Leeds. I've just come back from Manchester. And each of those areas, they're all proud people, proud of their community, proud of who they are. And in bringing that to the table, they create very special BBC content for the audiences they serve.
And in terms of that pride in the people that work with you, that must create a feeling of hope for the future of broadcasting, but hope for the communities in which they're involved with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we've got the whole discussion about the future of the BBC coming up with charter renewal and the debate around that and the future of the licence fee and so forth. And I just hope that in having that debate, we really considered the value of local provision and how we serve the nation, how we serve regions of England as well. I think, the world we're living in is one which is increasingly globalised in media terms. We're getting a lot of content coming over from the United States. I think it was January this year, of the top 20 shows consumed by young people, only one was made from the UK. So in terms of protecting our cultural identities in the UK, in terms of growing the creative economy, we've got to be really mindful about that. And we've really got to think what role public service media in the future plays in that respect.
But you have hope for the future of public service broadcasting, but on a wider scale, you have hope for Wales.
Oh, 100%.
That's key.
100%. I think, we're a resilient nation. That's evolving, that's changing, but we are a fantastic nation of people who I think, are so diverse, who have great ambition, I think, for our communities. I mean, just despite everything, I still think the sense of community in Wales is something that we can still celebrate and treasure and value. And I think we've got to be hopeful. I think otherwise we might as well all go home and give up now.
I know, and sadly we're coming to the end of our time, and we've taken a number of paths in Bute Park, and it's also an arboretum these days, which is stunning. And looking around,
it's beautiful.
Wales is a gorgeous place. Yeah. Wales is a wonderful place. It needs people with that enthusiasm and excitement about the future and hope for the future to be able to speak up. Bad prospers when good people say nothing. Isn't that right? And we need more people to have that sense of positivity about the future.
At least have a vision, Somebody once said, believe in something. Believe in the sort of future we're trying to forge for our communities and for Wales. That's how I think in terms of our audiences. How do we serve them best in this ever-changing society? And I think we've got such a massive role to play in the BBC, like I say, in terms of the democratic process, in terms of civility and social cohesion, and that sense of togetherness, and that place where we can offer safe space for tough debate, and long may that continue.
So Rhuanedd, you worked in government and politics after you left the BBC. That was a new departure for you. We talked earlier about your interest in community, and that's probably a departure which is aligned to that understanding and appreciation that government and politics make a difference.
It really was, and it was really interesting. I saw all aspects of government and all aspects of politics, and also learnt a lot about bringing people together and how you motivate people to do that for a sense of good.
Yeah.
Which I think I've been able to apply to my leadership afterwards as well. It's been a really helpful tool within that. Sort of how do you cut off the edges in sharp debates in order to get a sort of coalition of minds, you know, from across the political spectrum completely. So that was really, really fascinating. But also, at that time when I worked in politics and in the Welsh Parliament, you know, Wales was going through the financial crash,
Yes.
like everybody else. It required agility, it required quick responses, it required all parties to work together. Similarly, over a number of other issues, such as the animal diseases we faced
Of course.
back at the time. So, yeah, it was a fascinating insight into how you persuade and influence. And like I say, how you bridge between different opinions.
Hugely important and a really interesting time of your life, I expect.
It was a really interesting time of my life. I mean, my children were very small at the time. And I look back and you have a slight sort of, how did we do that? But it was fun. And I learnt a lot about myself. I had an amazing coach at that time to help me as well, sort of navigate my way through it all. And I guess it was she and a couple of others who saw the potential in me then to become a leader. And yeah, I learnt a lot from there.
You mentioned, you know, mentoring and coaching, you know, really important. And I was at an event recently, I think I referred to it earlier in our conversation, when you're talking to Laura McAllister and you've acted as informal coaches with each other. No formal structure, but that sounding board opportunity and somebody that you can speak to and say, well, do you know what, how should I approach this, or should I do it, or shouldn't I do it, is something which I think is crucial in somebody's career.
I think there are about 20 women in particular out there who I've sort of used as sounding boards at various points in my career. And, you know, as you say, that's not in a formal capacity. That is in the capacity of just being able to have those moments of self-reflection.
Yes.
And challenging myself and asking others of their perceptions of me and my style of leadership. And that's been really helpful. But professionally, I've had mentors throughout my career as well. From my very first day in the BBC, I was given a mentor who has been absolutely superb throughout my career. And I've had external coaches. And I just think having those check-in moments where you indulge yourself, because that's how it feels, you're indulging yourself in an opportunity to consider your goals, your ambitions, how you're doing, where your energy level's at, what you're struggling with. And sometimes having the challenge from others, I just think is really valuable, really important.
And perspective.
Yes.
Different perspectives.
Yes, because we can all get dragged into the depths of issues and not take that step back to think, right, what actually matters here?
Yeah.
What is the purpose? What am I channeling my energies into the right things? So, yeah, just seeking other people's views or having coaching in order to come to your own conclusions on that is really important.
And I've always loved that personally as well. It's that ability to have a sounding board, as I say, and just to say, am I on the right track?
Yes, it is absolutely that. And I also believe, by the way, and it sounds a bit odd, but I believe in self-talk. So, you know, when I show up at work as a leader, I have to show up from the very first second I step through that door in a position where I can motivate and inspire others. Yeah. And guess what? Some days you just don't feel like that, do you? So I will drive down to work, or I'll catch the train from Pontypridd, and on my journey down I will be talking to myself saying, right, how are you going to show up today? You know, what?
Do you?
Yeah, big time. And there are times when I'm really nervous about stuff.
Yeah.
So if I've got to present to the board, or if I've got to, you know, do something really important speech somewhere, I'll be thinking to myself, well, you know, how am I going to get over this? How am I going to appear to others?
Yeah.
And will I be able to do it? That crosses my mind all the time.
And you talk to yourself in the car?
I talk to myself.
That's brilliant.
And I say, come on, Richards, get a grip. Yeah, you can do this. You've got this. These are the tools you can turn to if things go wrong. These are your safety nets. Or what additional work do I need to do to get myself in a position where I feel confident going in. But I do, I really believe in that.
I've actually put a suit on and stood up when I know I'm going to have a difficult conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
And for me, I just felt a little bit more, less relaxed. It was particularly during the pandemic. I thought, no, I'm going to prepare for this.
Yeah.
But, in a one-act play with no audience.
I'm not wearing them today, but quite often I'll put a pair of heels on, right? Because it's sometimes about how I'm performing to myself and how I show up. Now, that's different to not showing up as your authentic self.
No, of course. No, absolutely.
But it is just about giving yourself the tools and the aids to be able to face the day and be the best version of yourself. And
It's like a mini dress rehearsal, isn't it, really?
Yeah. And I say to people, as leaders, we've all got things going on in our lives, right? I mean, I've got a very poorly dad who has Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. And we've been through some tough years, some really tough years. And, it can get to you. And people say, well, how do you cope with all of that and the anxiety and the kids and everything else? And it is about being able to give your time, be kind to yourself, to give you time to process all of that. Yeah. But also, as I say, as I'm coming to work, just trying to refocus and having that little word with myself saying, you've got this.
And you mentioned your dad, and of course he was the one that gave you the name that you've got, and there's a story behind the name, because you've had it spelt differently and pronounced differently throughout your life, I imagine.
Oh yes, I've been called everything. Absolutely everything. He gave me, him and my mum gave me the most complicated name to pronounce and spell for people who are not familiar with our beautiful language. But I remember asking Dad, why did you give me such a difficult name? And I remember Dad saying to me, because you'll always have to explain where you've come from. Brilliant. And I thought that was lovely, and perhaps tells you a little bit about the values I was brought up with and which have stayed with me throughout my life, I guess. And
we've come full circle, values being so important. And it's been an absolute treat chatting with you. And can I wish you all the very best for the future in this role? And we'll catch up again.
Definitely.
It'd be lovely to come back and maybe have another chat with you, because we could talk for hours and hours and hours, I'm sure. But, we're grateful for your time.
Thank you for the walk.
Walking the Talk is hosted by Robert Lloyd Griffiths and created and produced by Call of the Wild, with editing support from Buffoon Media.